welcome to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Thanks so much for hanging out with us this week for some craft beer conversations, news, and insights. I think we give insights, don't we? Opinions, information.
Insight's a slightly fancy word for us just giving our really dumb opinions about things.
Yeah. No, we share some factual information, or at least to the except for last week when you lied about telling us why they put lime in Mexican lagers.
I gave you the explanation I got, that they thought it was a marketing thing from the 80s. That's all I can tell. I can't prove it myself, but
you brought it in as though you had a solution, that you had the answers, Brian, and I felt lied to is basically what I'm trying to say here. So
you'll heal eventually.
I will heal. Time.
Put a little lime on it, that injury, and that'll fix it. Yeah.
It'll sanitize it. We'll be good to go.
That's right. Yep.
Well, y'all, let's jump into it. Brian, beers of the week. I said this is Beer Guys Radio. I said hi, and then I got off track. But Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing fine. Yeah. And hello to the people from work that are listening. I have some coworkers that started listening to the show, so I don't know how often they do, but hi guys. I'm here
the ones
as well.
That are there.
Yeah.
Yeah. To the folks that are there.
How you doing, Tim?
Hanging out with us. I'm good, Brian. Yeah. I'm good. Yeah. So cranking right along over here. So now back to what I was going to say. Beers of the week, always fun. What we're sipping on. Brian, you always bring the heat. And what are you sipping on this week?
I do. And the BJ's, the brewery and restaurants have reached out to me. They said, hey, we've got this beer that we bring out every year that we're excited about called Nitwit White Ale. And I said, hey, you know what? I'll be happy to try it out. So they sent me some of it, and
there you go.
I've got a can or two for you as well if you'd like to try it. But it's an unfiltered Belgian style wit beer that they come out with every year to much hoopla, I believe. So so that was my pregame beer. It's solid. It was very very fruity. A lot of citrus. They talked on the can. They talked about the spices, but the citrus really jumped out at me out of that. So that was nice. And I have gotten into Wild Leap's Double Chance, which is a double IPA, celebrating the 1,000th tank of Wild Leap and their most popular beer, Chance IPA. I don't know if the 1,000th tank was actually brewing Chance IPA, but those two things came together. But so that's a fun one. I'm sipping on that, and then later on, probably during the little post game stuff with the Patreon folks, I'll be getting into Sierra Nevada's Hoptimum, the 2025 version of it. So that's a triple IPA. So I am bringing the heat, Tim.
Bringing the heat. You got to.
Yes,
and you absolutely have to do it. Yeah. So
how about you, Tim?
I'll tell you here in just a minute, but I feel like we shouldn't ignore it here for those that are listening and thinking we're about a third less than we usually are. Mo Mike Nate's on assignment this week. So we hope that his assignment is going well, but he'll be back with us soon. But Brian, my beer of the week, I'm doing a tribute beer here. So to a fallen soldier this week in Georgia beer, but I have from Jekyll Brewing, Big Creek Kölsch. So we just heard earlier this week that they're closing all locations, and I'm not even sure how many they had now. I know three or four. They had three in Georgia, original location. They'd built one in downtown Alpharetta, Georgia, and actually had a location here in my town in Woodstock. And I believe they had a Florida location as well.
But you might be right about that.
Yeah. But the owner, Michael Lundmark, who's been on the show, actually not that long ago, Michael joined us on the show. But,
that's right. He was pretty recently.
He did confirm in a local beer chat group that all locations will be closing. So, they're ones that they were not the first crew, second wave, Brian, or first wave of the new wave, maybe. I don't know how to exactly quantify it there, but, they've been around about a decade, I guess.
Yeah.
And they were one of the first breweries, at least in Georgia, to do a Kickstarter. And that was back when not a lot of breweries were doing the Kickstarter, so they were usually very successful. It unfortunately got to the point, anytime a new brewery went to open, they'd do a Kickstarter, and a lot of them started not getting funded because there was just too much going on. But Jekyll got huge support. They gave away some cool perks. There was a wall in their original brewery where they put the names up of supporters and that. And, they expanded out within the craft beer community, the craft nerds. Jekyll got some hate. There were some people that, didn't care for the brewery and were very vocal about it. Every now and then there's breweries like that, they don't just dislike them. They feel the need to be very vocal about disliking.
That's true. Yes.
But there were a lot of people that did enjoy them, and, they've been around for a decade, man. They worked through our, SB 63 and 85 law changes here to help improve stuff in Georgia. And, they were one of the ones that opened up when basically you could just do tours and tastings, and you opened up an industrial park. So unfortunately, I think a lot of the folks that opened up under that model, even if they've modernized, it's made it even tougher for them because, they opened up with larger scale, because at that time, distribution was the way you made money. So they opened up with the intentions of brewing a lot of beer, getting it out to distribution, not so much selling it in their tap room, which we see now that breweries, a lot of the smaller breweries where their main focus is we brew and serve here, are having a little easier go of things.
I have two thoughts in my head at the same time that seem conflicting, but one of them is like, I could swear I've been hearing rumors for a while that Jekyll was closing, but at the same time, I'd go to the places like, I think the Alpharetta location was really nice. It seemed really nice, and it did seem really popular. Now that location is not nearby for me, so I'm not over there all the time. So I'm not a really good barometer for how well they were doing, but it seemed really nice. It's in an area that's very popular, like a lot of pedestrian traffic. And I've gone up there where there's just hordes of people everywhere just having a good time. I'm like, that seemed like just an absolute easy a gimme. They have a spot there. It's a good spot. So I assumed, I wouldn't have thought that they'd have the problem. And with the expanding that they've done, I was wondering if they've expanded out to a point, and I don't know how the economics work really, because I've never done this kind of thing, but I'm like, they've gotten big enough. I'm like, I just assumed that they had the cushion to support them.
That's
times, but I don't know, man.
I think that's the tough call with the breweries, Brian, is sometimes I think they expand to build that, that it's a leap of faith kind of thing. So, it works out for some, maybe not for others. Another Woodstock brewery, Reformation Brewing, they did that where I think they were one of the first to, start opening multiple locations in the state. And they're up to 3 or 4 as well. I can't even keep up anymore. But
they've got a lot. And that Woodstock spot is they're just killing it. They're swamped all the time. So the way they are there is what I thought Jekyll was like in Alpharetta. Now it could be wrong. Obviously I must be, because if they had that kind of traffic in there, I don't think they would have to close. I think about them, and I think about like a very similar kind of scenario, though. I didn't think they would be as likely to close as say Red Hair was, but Red Hair was super popular in the original location too.
They were originally very popular too.
Hordes of people in there, and interestingly enough, they had their haters. Just like Jekyll had their haters, and they tended to be a little dismissive and vocal about it. And but they had such a great crowd in there. Anytime I ever went, I was surprised, and they had multiple locations too. So I don't know. Yeah.
I think both Jekyll and Red Hair, using them as examples, the beers that they brewed or that they focused on were more mass appeal kind of beer.
Yeah.
And so the beer nerds are looking for something a little more, I don't even want to say creative. They're just looking for something, different, exciting in that. And I don't think that was a big focus for those guys, because again, we're on the beer forums, we're on a podcast for beer, and we get stuck in our own little universe, and it can seem a lot bigger than it actually is. There's a lot of people that do drink craft beer, but to them, a Jekyll Big Creek Kölsch is the finest one out there. Even in some of the local chats today, where they were talking about Jekyll, and there were people commenting, about the issues that they had with them. There were several people that's like, I love this beer and this beer and this beer. So, it's definitely not universal that people disliked them. There's a very, very large crowd that they did appeal to, maybe not the beer nerd looking for a triple hazy double dipped IPA or anything, but plenty of people do enjoy them.
I remember being very pleasantly surprised by a few of the beers, like really liking some of the ones at the time. Not long ago when we went to the location in Woodstock, where I think one of them was a Mexican lager. I'm like, that's a really well-made Mexican lager. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what else.
It's tough all around out there, man. I'm not sure. Again, talking about the local chat rooms, but someone's like, who else is in trouble these days? There can't be many of them. I don't think I ended up leaving a comment because I didn't have time because I was goofing off at work for a second.
Yeah.
But basically, I was going to say probably nearly everybody. There's a few that are doing well and have said they're doing well, but even some that have the outward perception that they may be doing well are still struggling. We talk with the brewers that have said it's tough all around there. Talking to Thomas Monty at Schoolhouse, his original location in Marietta, Georgia, he said he does great there. It's usually packed out, but he had a second location he had to close because it just didn't get the same traffic. So you just never know, but it's just tough out there for craft beer.
I think his choice to jettison the one to save the other was really smart, and I'm wondering if that's a choice that other breweries are not willing to make or other owners aren't. Like they get attached to the new locations and they're like, I can make this work, and they wind up sinking the ship because one location is just a drain, like instead of cutting it loose. So kind of that sweat equity, or I don't know what the term is for that, but you can't let it go once you have it, type of thing. And you got to sometimes. So.
And I'm afraid for some of them, it's just that, hey, we're going to open the second location, see if we can increase cash flow. And it just doesn't.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, this was our attempt to kind of bring some more in. And, Thomas mentioned that he funded his second location a lot with the money he was bringing in from his first location. But he's like, I can't keep doing that, because naturally you got to seed it a little bit to get it going and that, but it just didn't work out for him. And I do want to throw out there, speaking of Jekyll, if you're listening to this show, if you're watching us live on the live stream, or you're listening to this show Saturday, they're closing after service on Mother's Day. So, there's still time if you want to go out there and give them one more visit, go have you a Big Creek Kölsch or whatever's on tap there, a bite to eat at some of their locations, and there's still time to do that. But yeah, Jekyll was always good to us, man. Michael Lundmark was always good to us. Josh Rachel that was there brewing. Our buddy Joe got his start there, who's now the brewmaster at Scofflaw. So yeah. So always sad to see someone that's been around a while and a big part of the community, or any brewery. But that's we knew those guys well. Absolutely. Well, Brian, moving along. I want to talk some about ESBs, Brian. Some interesting news, which we will expand a little bit more on. And we're going to kind of double dip on this. And we mentioned that we would do more style profiles. So we're going to talk about the extra special bitter profile. But there was also a very interesting development at the World Beer Cup in relation to that style. So, Brian, tell us about ESB's extra special bitters.
So ESB is just the it's interesting in the context of the World Beer Cup. There are subcategories of ESB, and the one that we have notes on that's particularly relevant is the American style extra special bitter. And in terms of what you can expect from this beer, you're going to expect the color of the beer to be anywhere from amber to a deep copper color. You want it to be reasonably clear, but some chill haze is acceptable at lower temperatures. It should have a medium to medium high malt aroma and flavor. In terms of hop aroma and flavor, medium to medium high as well. And with the typical, you're going to want typical American hop varieties in there. So like Citras and things like that, maybe, or Cascade, or Chinook maybe, are things you might expect to see in the American style variation of the ESB. And so your perceived bitterness, again, medium to medium high, not super low. So it's going to, typically these have a lower carbonation characteristics. So it can be a little bit higher in your bottle variations, but it's a slight increase there is acceptable. It tends to be on the lower side, where we're not looking at cask levels, but we're getting down there. It should be refreshing. It should be thirst quenching. There may well be some fruity esters in there. That is acceptable for the style. Usually you don't want any diacetyl in these beers. You don't want any of that butteriness. That's not what you're looking for in the ESB. And if you think about it, it just doesn't make any sense. So yeah, medium to full body. And it's a good, easy drinking beer. You're looking at not super high ABVs. Your maybe 4.8, 4.5 to maybe 5.5. I think sub 6% ABV is what you're looking at. So then bitterness, like I said, it's like 30 to 45 IBUs for it. So it's not super bitter, but it's going to have some hop presence to it. So that's what we're looking at.
And you're speaking of specifically the American ESB style.
Correct.
That's to kind of explain what it was that was a shocker from the World Beer Cup, is the beer that took gold in the ESB category at the World Beer Cup was the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. And that was something that, people saw that and they're like, okay, is that a typo or what in the world's going on? There's a lot of chatter about it. And we did finally see some posts that talked about basically beer styles are evolving. And I think we know that anybody who's been drinking beer for, 5-10 years or more has seen, I think one of the biggest ones in America, we can see the evolution of the IPA. What's happened with that. But they were just talking about that beer styles are ever evolving. And this year, I think they said, I may not be 100% correct on this, but I believe they said this was the first year for the American ESB category or American ESB subcategory in the World Beer Cup. So I guess according to the World Beer Cup's new guidelines, the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale fits into that category. And I think most people that know ESBs are definitely thinking of the British style of the beer.
For sure.
And, that is definitely one that you are more apt to see on cask, than the American variant. But, pretty similar style there. I would say that I know they say moderate hop bitterness in those. I never have had an ESB that I thought to be bitter, which kind of, surprised me with bitter in the name. But they're again, good drinking beers that they talk about. But the traditional style, English, the English style of that is balanced to slightly bitter on the profile, is what they say there. Aroma is going to have a little bit of hops in the, in the aroma there. They're maltier. So the ESB is going to have some malt character to it. And that's one thing, if you like a lighter beer, but you're wanting a little more than like your typical Pilsner gives you, then an ESB is a good next step to that type of beer. They can be golden to deep copper. They should have like a white or off-white head on there. And I am referring to notes here as I do this. I know the style, but I want to make sure to catch all the info in there. But the flavor is balanced to somewhat bitter. And again, I've never had one that I thought, was particularly bitter. They're going to be pretty light on the mouthfeel, a little bit of body to them, but overall fairly light in the mouthfeel. They're drinking beers, man. That's definitely one that falls into the drinking beer category. And with this, IBUs are going to be between 30 and 50, and you will have an ABV of about 4.6 to 6.2. So by English standards, the ESB wouldn't really be their session beer, kind of a step up from that. But if you want something a little more than a lager beer, with a little more character, a little more booziness to it, then ESB is kind of the next step on that ladder.
I've always thought that the bitter part of the extra special bitter is relative. It's a term that was set up when this kind of beer style was defined, where it was probably noticeably less sweet than other beers that were available at a given time. And I know there was a period of time, I saw people talking about it actually this week, I think, on social media, where they were talking about there was a period of time where people were really talking about how dry their beer was because people were sick of sweet beers. And so it's entirely possible that the whole concept behind this being an extra special bitter is to highlight the fact that this is not a like cloyingly sweet beer. This is something that I don't know. Dry might not be exactly the word for it, but it's going to have some edge. It's going to have some balance. It's going to skew a little bit more towards bitter without necessarily being exactly what you might think of as being bitter. So I think that that's probably more of it, and that bitter scares people off these days, but I'm sure there'll become a time when everybody's looking for the most bitter beer around, because we talked about how the cycles go. So
the cycles there, the eras of beer, and some good examples of a standard ESB or traditional ESB. Fuller's, I think, is one that most people are going to know. The Fuller's ESB there. Of course, Samuel Smith, their Old Brewery Pale Ale is an ESB. Bass Ale is an ESB. So those are some others here that I'm not as. Oh, I forgot. Old Speckled Hen is one.
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
About, and that's a good one. We actually have had some of that. Our friend Owen Ogletree, when he does the Atlanta Cask Ale tasting, he has pulled the strings that he has to get casks of that beer over here. So
for a while, that was one of my favorite beers. I've had a few ESBs over the years that were favorites of mine. I'm trying to think. Now it's escaping me that there's a place in Portland that closed down that was owned by the same people who own Shiner, and I can't think of the name. They've been gone for a while, but they had an ESB that was phenomenal. I just loved it. I would never have thought, and I guess I should say that another good example of an ESB, apparently now, at least the American variant, is Sierra Nevada Pale Ale.
Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. Gold medal winning there, man.
That's an ESB now.
Gold medal winning beer. Absolutely.
That is a great style, and I really encourage people to try it out if you haven't, and don't be scared by the name,
Yeah.
If you see it.
Well, now I'll say this. And again, I think anytime you throw American on a lot of these classic English styles, one of the first things you think of is it's going to have more bitterness, So the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale to me does have some bitterness to it, but I visited their location in, I think it's Mills River, North Carolina is their East Coast location up around the Asheville area. And part of what they do at the beginning of their brewery tour is they show you a little video, have you in a big kind of a conference room type of presentation room, and you get a pint of Sierra Nevada Pale Ale that's, brewed right there at the brewery, super fresh. And Brian, so many beers, if you haven't experienced them truly fresh, you really haven't experienced them.
You really have to.
I haven't heard as much chatter about it lately, but there are definitely people that are of the mindset that an IPA more than a week old is past its prime, and especially you get a month old in that. And I can tell you that I've never had a Sierra Nevada Pale Ale from a bottle or package that I thought was bad. I haven't drank any like 2 years old or anything, but I can tell you that the one at the brewery fresh was next level, so really good.
The example I always think of is Sweetwater IPA. I get it. You get it fresh
Absolutely.
When you get there. You have to, because it's never going to be as good as it is right there. And that one really jumps out at me. Zach West mentions Red Hook. They've got an ESB.
Red Hook ESB. Yep. That's definitely one we see around here.
That came out in 1987. I was looking at the notes for that.
Red Hook did?
Yeah, that particular ESB balances caramel malt sweetness and subtle spice with citrusy hoppy flavors. So I've had that. It's been a very long time, but I think that's probably a really good example. And
once he mentioned it, I'm like, oh yeah, Red Hook, of course, right? Of course.
If you see it around, get it, because it's kind of hard to find these things. So it's a bit of a rare treat on this side of the pond. Now over there, over in the UK, that you probably can find it on cask a little bit more easily. But
that's another beers. One that your local brewery, go to your local brewery, because if you want a good ESB, that's definitely one that gets tapped at the brew house more than they put it in cans or bottles or whatever vessel.
That is true. And I have recommended a few at Truck and Tap. So Truck and Tap frequently has, not always, but frequently has an ESB on. So
yeah. But Brian, getting more into it, the World Beer Cup Awards were last week, in correspondence with the Craft Brewers Conference, which was up in Indy. So that went down, and the World Beer Cup Awards were handed out. It was interesting. So I watched a little bit of the live stream, and this is the World Beer Cup. It's not just American. A lot of times we see these beer competitions; they're pretty dominated by American breweries, and of course, I mean, you're at a competition in America, so you're going to see a lot of that. But a lot of international breweries, Brian, a lot of Asian breweries I saw meddling on some of this stuff. And I forget was it Tsingtao, the NA beer? I mentioned to you and I forget, but I think it was
in my notes. Tsingtao NA took gold for non-alcoholic ale or lager.
Crazy stuff, man. Good. I think it's great to hear.
I got to try it,
Yeah. But Brian, you've done a lot of hard work here, kind of summarizing everything that went on at the World Beer Cup Awards. We're going to dive into this, but due to the timing, and we've got quite a bit to go through with this, before we get into this deep, how about we give a shout out to our sponsor?
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Since I did just mention Truck and Tap. So
there you go. Good timing.
Yeah, so when we talk about Truck and Tap, I usually focus on the great selection of beer they have. They've got 20 taps, and they've got a variety of cans and bottles as well. But there's something else that Truck and Tap has a great selection of: bourbon. And they've been showing it off on social media this week. If you're a fan, are you a fan of Weller or Angel's Envy or Eagle Rare or good old Buffalo Trace? They've got all of those, and they've got more besides. In some locations, I think a lot more. You'll have to check. So this week, my beer picks will feature beers that I think would pair well with a shot of bourbon, some Boilermaker beers, if you will. So, summon your Ubers and get ready to have a few interesting drinking sessions. But at Truck and Tap Woodstock, I'm going with Genesee Cream Ale. We're a fan of Jenny Cream here, but I don't know if I've ever paired that with bourbon before. Did we do that in the studio? Do you remember, Tim?
I don't believe not that I recall, Brian, because I don't want to taint the glorious name of Jenny Cream.
I said, I was thinking that we never had, and then I thought maybe we have.
Maybe we did.
Do some
you
weird
probably
stuff.
did. You probably did.
Maybe, but
we had both beer and whiskey at the studio, so it's likely that it happened.
We had a nice selection of whiskeys, didn't we? Yeah,
we did.
I missed that. So AI seems to think, and I've never tried any of these, but they seem to think that Maker's Mark or Bullet Bourbon would be a good pairing with Jenny Cream. And rest assured, this is something I am going to try, even if I have before, because I don't remember it clearly. But I believe I have both of these. I know I have a leftover bottle of Bullet from a previous trip that I took. I wound up bringing it back with me. Anyway, I'm getting off topic here. At the Duluth location, I'm getting Six Bridges Silent Accord off the Nitro tap. Not only were you talking about a Nitro beer here, we're talking about an oatmeal milk stout on Nitro. It's going to be full-bodied and velvety with notes of vanilla and coconut, and it's only 6.5% ABV. So it sounds like it would be more than that. I think bourbon would go really well with that. Vanilla, coconut, these are notes that come out in bourbon, so I think these would be very copacetic together. At Truck and Tap Alpharetta, my pick is Bold Monk's Discipline, and I think Discipline might have been a World Beer Cup medal winner. But anyway, this is said to be a deceptively drinkable, that's what Truck and Tap says, Belgian double with yeast-driven dark fruit notes. I'm thinking this might pair well with a more barrel-forward bourbon, one that's maybe higher proof or double oaked, some of that type of stuff. I think that might be good with this Belgian double. And finally, at the Lawrenceville location, I'm going with Naked River's Moon Pie Stout, which is a pastry stout brewed with actual moon pies. This is the booziest of my beer picks for the week at 8.5%, so proceed with caution. But also, don't you want to know what a bourbon-flavored moon pie tastes like? I mean, I definitely do.
I'm down for that.
Right. Yeah. But if that's pushing it, I have an alternate pick for Lawrenceville. Left Hand's Belgian White on Nitro, another Nitro beer. That's right. It's wit beer on Nitro, and it's only a 4.8% beer, so this is going to be a little safer for you to try out. I just really like to see how a wit beer would pair with something like a good old Buffalo Trace. I think it would be good. I'm not sure, and there's only one way to find out. And there you have it. Those are my beer picks for the week. But if you'd like to make your own, head over to truckandtap.com. There's a lot to choose from. You will find the full tap list there for each location, not to mention events calendars and food truck schedules and all kinds of fun stuff. Or you can just drop by your local Truck and Tap and play it by ear. That always works. And thank you to Truck and Tap for your support.
Good stuff. Thank you, Truck and Tap. Brian, World Beer Cup 2025 awards, stats, info, interesting trends there. What happened at the World Beer Cup this year, Brian?
Yes, so this was the 16th World Beer Cup competition. It's received, and I've got some stats to start things off, 8,375 entries from 1,761 breweries and cideries, representing 49 countries. That's a lot of places, like you mentioned before. 317 of those entries were the very first ever for the given brewery or cidery. There were 265 judges evaluating beers, and they weren't all American judges. 132 of those judges came from a country other than the U.S. 37 countries were represented in the judging, so it's very like beer from all over the world and judged by people from all over the world. The judging took place over 14 sessions, and that spanned 7 days. So I guess 2 sessions a day. It's a lot of hard work, a lot of hard drinking. There were 112 beer style categories and subcategories. We mentioned subcategories before, and there were 5 cider categories. The average number of beers in each category was 73. So meaning if it were all up to chance, your beer entry would have a 1.37% chance of winning. So if it was just random, it isn't. Like the guys who make the better beer have obviously going to have a better chance of winning, but you never know. Somebody might outdo you. The most entered style categories were juicy or hazy India Pale Ale at the top with 290 entries. The West Coast style India Pale Ale at 253 entries. The American style IPA at 208 entries. German style Pilsner, nice to see it up there at number 4 with 186 entries. And Hoppy Lager with 155 entries at number 5. This was the first year for the Italian Pilsner category. It had 132 entries, and STS Pils from Russian River took gold. So Russian River just came in and just snagged that away. I got to try. Part of me thinks I've had that, but
you have.
All of me thinks I need it again.
Yeah, I've had it a couple times, so I'm sure if I have that, you've had that.
I'll bet I have a glowing review of it somewhere in Untapped, or an embarrassing bad review.
The bottle's like green with kind of an oval logo with STS in red. Is that ringing any bells for you there?
Kind of. Yeah, kind of does. Yeah. Like I definitely have seen the bottle before. Like I've heard of it before, but anyway, so interesting wins. As you mentioned before, Tsingtao took the gold for non-alcoholic ale or lager. Trail Pass, which I believe is Sierra Nevada's non-alcoholic stuff, they got gold for hoppy non-alcoholic beers. We saw no wins for Athletic Brewing in the non-alcoholic categories, which is a bit surprising. I thought
that was interesting. Real quick, Brian, I want to correct myself because I Googled to see if I was wrong. I'm crossing up my Pliny and my STS bottles. The STS bottle is blue with the oval with the STS in it. So
I was thinking blue. I think, like, is it blue and like red lettering or something like that?
No, blue with white lettering, at least according to my Google in here. So just blue label, white letters, and that's it. Short or plain and simple.
To be fair to me, it's a little tough to get that over here. It's just it
is a little tricky.
A little uncommon to see it here.
Yeah.
So as we mentioned before, the Sierra Nevada winning, the Pale Ale winning the American ESB category, they got gold for that, and it's a great beer. So it's worthy of a medal. It's surprising it got that one, but I guess that's how things work. Very interesting that Lawson's Finest won the only medal of any brewery in Vermont this year. They got a silver for Fayston Maple Imperial Stout, which is a British style Imperial Stout. So good for them. They make great beers, so that's cool. I've got some information about some local Georgia breweries.
Local love, yeah.
I think Tim actually grabbed all these. I just reformatted them a bit, but 9 total medals for 6 Georgia breweries at the World Beer Cup. The biggest winner of all of them in terms of just numbers is New Realm. They've got a silver for Blackberry Smoke. They got bronze for Lima Vesa. They got bronze for Fooder Age Saison, which I need to try that. I didn't know they made that kind of beer, but Bold Monk got 2. They got a gold for Virtue of Patience in the wood and barrel aged sour category. That's a great beer. That's one.
I think that's a repeat winner too. I think Virtue of Patience has won before.
I think they've not only have they won this, but they've won other competitions with that. And I've had that. That's a wonderful beer. If you can find Virtue of Patience, or you can get somebody, if you're not in the area, trade somebody for that, you should definitely do that. They're doing really good work there. They also got bronze for Discipline Double, which is the one I did talk about in the Truck and Tap section there. And I try it with a bourbon or not. Just try it by itself. Either way. We also have Rock Solid, Still Fire, Silver Bluff, and Wild Heaven with Eschaton. They all won a medal apiece. So it's a good turnout for the state of Georgia. We had more winners here in Georgia than Vermont had. So that's something. Yeah.
I mean, to have 6 breweries and 9 medals, we used to lament the fact that we'd have these big beer competitions and Georgia just wouldn't get anything, and we were big fans of our brewers, very, very much rooting for the home team, and there just wouldn't be anything or maybe one medal. So to see this is, it's pretty cool, man. It's cool. So it's nice to see that we've got some out there that are brewing killer beers and getting recognition for it.
Does it seem like there's anything missing from that list of winners? Like any surprises that aren't there? I mean, maybe it's breweries that didn't enter, but
you talking about someone that I feel should have won?
I'm just surprised I don't see a single Creature Comfort Creature Comfort entry in there.
Okay.
Because they've been making really good beers that have been noticed outside the state for a while.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I mean, there weren't any for them, but here's the thing. I don't have any idea who all entered this. And some breweries simply just don't do it. So
yeah, I would think that Creature had some in there though. I think they normally do get into these, but who knows, man? Who knows? Because somebody had asked, about the cost to do this, and I forget the exact amount, but I think it's like $180 per beer to enter it.
Oh wow! Okay,
so for a small brewery, that's a chunk of change. Especially if you want to enter a few beers. You either have to have one beer that you're like, nope, this is the one. Let's go. Because you think about it, man. If you only enter 3 beers, that's $540 just to enter them in a competition, and maybe nothing comes of it.
It's kind of like entering a lottery for a lot of like free press, because if you win the right category with your beer, you're going to get a lot of attention. Now, some of these you're not going to, but I just like if you hit one of the IPA categories and you're up there, people are going to notice. So you're going to get some traffic. I would assume you get some traffic. You get some inquiries at the very least. So that's got to be good if you're trying to get your name out there. Again, it's a big gamble. It's a pricey gamble, but it might be worth it.
I think it also is great for, not just the fact you won, but boy, that gives you something impressive to market and put on social media. Cheers. We're so excited to announce that our beer won gold. And Brian, we did it, I think with JBF, Rock Solid one. No. It was Drowned Valley.
That's right. Yeah.
Their brown ale, I think it was, won a medal at GABF. And we're like, hey man, let's go up and see those guys. We haven't seen them in a minute. Let's get up there and check it out. So yeah, definitely if you can throw out some things to say you've got a medal winning beer, you're going to get some people coming to check you out. And if they check you out, hopefully they'll dig what they're trying there and get you another customer.
And I'm absolutely going to go get that Discipline Double from Bold Monk. It wasn't on my radar, and now it is. And the Virtue of Patience I knew was good, and I need to, if the place I'm thinking of still has any of the bottles left, I need to go grab a few of them, because I've been looking at it. I'm like, I know that's
I hear Truck and Tap has it. So if you're interested, you could check out Truck.
The Discipline Double. I don't know about the Virtue of Patience.
The Virtue of Patience. Okay, gotcha.
They have had it. I don't know if they currently do, but
we know a guy though.
Yeah, we do know a guy.
We know a guy.
We can make this work.
We can do something there. Yeah, but it was interesting to see everything with this. Lots of surprises, at least to me, out there with what was it, who won and who didn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Well, Brian, moving on from the World Beer Cup, we've got some more stats on the beer industry's economic impact.
Yes, we do. So this is a positive story. I like reading things about this, because we hear about the negative stuff, but what the good that beer does, the industry does. I love hearing about it. So according to the biennial Beer Serves America study commissioned by the Beer Institute and the National Beer Wholesalers Association, the U.S. beer industry generated $470.96 billion in economic output in 2024. And that equates to 1.58% of the country's gross domestic product. You might hear that referred to as GDP. The figure is up 61.76 billion. Yeah, it's up compared to the previous 2022 study. Again, every 2 years they do this. It was at 409.2 billion back in 2022. The beer industry's economic output outstripped all other alcohol categories, which includes spirits coming in at about 250 billion and wine coming in at 276 billion. So we're really killing it in terms of our economic output. And with the declines we've been hearing about in the beer industry, you might be wondering how could all still be growing. There's a lot of factors in the growth. You've got inflation, which is bringing the numbers up. You've got price increases, which are happening, premiumization, innovation, and also increased wages and benefits. So that's part of the economic impact of these. So the people getting paid more and getting better benefits increases the impact beer has on the economy. We found that I was not involved in it. I didn't find anything, but they found that for every dollar invested in the beer industry, $2.31 was generated within the U.S. economy. The beer industry supported 2.42 million jobs nationwide and contributed $142.5 billion in wages. So that said, direct industry jobs, actually directly working for somebody in beer, there were 91,498, which did slightly decline from 2022 from 92,000. So about 91,500 from 92,000 and change. Craft breweries accounted for the largest share of direct jobs with a little over 36,000 full-time employees, which is about 40.9%. There were an estimated 9,425 brewing facilities operating in the U.S. in 2024, with craft making up the majority of it, 66.2%. I would have thought it would be higher, honestly. I didn't realize so many of these facilities were actually non-craft. But interestingly, the number of malt beverage distributors has declined since 2022. And I've been seeing them close or get consolidated or bought up in the news too. And I haven't always reported it just because it's not terribly interesting to most of our listeners or to us that what the distributors are really doing, unless it's directly affecting the beer. But that does have an impact on what we're paying and where we're getting it from. The top 3 states for the beer industry employment as a share of their total state employment were Vermont, Maine, and Montana. The beer industry contributed $58 billion in state and federal tax revenue in 2024. That was actually a decrease from $63.8 billion in 2022. The decline in tax revenue is attributed to the shrinking beer volume and consumer shifts to other alcoholic beverage categories. So as the sales decline, actually the taxes getting paid also do decline too. But taxes amounted to 41.3% of the retail price of malt beverages, like all malt beverages. So 41.3% of what you're paying is actually taxes in some way embedded in the price. That is an increase, and they didn't specify how much it was from the previous study, but the top 10 most populated states account for over 50% of the industry's economic impact. So there we have it. That is all of the interesting stats that came
beer
out
stats.
From that. Yeah, the Beer Serves America study that they commissioned. So
okay,
a lot of really good, a lot of money going into the economy. It's it's a very good thing. Every dollar invested, the big takeaway I think is $2.31 of generated value in the U.S. economy. So that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's something, that our Craft Brewers Guild has campaigned on before, building breweries are businesses. I mean, quite simply, it's a business. And, being a hospitality business, they create jobs, they bring in revenue. And let's face it, man, there's some good taxes on alcohol too. So the government's happy if beer is doing well. And getting their money from that too. So, definitely something. It's good to hear that beer. It's good to hear good news about beer these days because it doesn't always come at us that way lately. And on that, I don't know. I'm going to remain indifferent on this next story, Brian, because I don't care for what this company has done to some breweries. But I don't want to see them be in trouble because of so many breweries that are under their umbrella, but Tilray brands. And they're actually in danger of being delisted from the NASDAQ.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. And I agree with you. I don't wish any ill on them because they have a lot of brands that I really like under their portfolio. And if they take a big hit, those brands take a big hit. There's just no avoiding that. But they're at risk of being delisted because they have fallen out of compliance because their stock price has not maintained the minimum bid price of $1 a share. NASDAQ issues a warning when a stock fails to meet the minimum bid price requirement for a period of 30 consecutive business days. And apparently February 7th, from what I read, was the last day that Tilray closed the trading day at or above the dollar price per share. So this notice does not impact Tilray's NASDAQ listing just yet, though. They have 180 calendar days to become compliant. That means they have to do 10 consecutive days with closing prices of its common stock above $1 or at $1 by September 21st. Should Tilray fail to gain compliance, the company would transfer from the NASDAQ Global Select Market to the NASDAQ Capital Market. And I don't know what that means exactly, but from context, it sounds like that's less than ideal. That's not desirable. But it also sounds like there's still the possibility for people to trade Tilray shares if they want to buy and sell them both, I think, if they are so inclined. But in any case, it seems like this is all unlikely to happen, as Tilray has announced plans to execute a reverse stock split in July to bring its share price above $1, pending the shareholder approval. So I have seen that. I know what that is, roughly.
Yeah.
But just as a reminder, and I have to say this when we talk about stocks, this is not financial advice, and I barely know what any of these terms even mean. So do not buy or sell anything as a result of what you've heard me say.
So
or Tim say, really.
Right. Yeah. Don't listen to us when it comes to financial stuff like that. We'll just tell you to buy beer and tacos.
Invest in beer and tacos.
Invest in tacos. They never let you down. I'm looking at their stock chart right now, and it's been a pretty steady slide over the last year. You know, like if you go back and you dig up the 5-year, they had a nice spike in 2021. Shares actually got up to, from what I'm seeing here, it looks like 29.21 may have been the peak that they got to there. And they are, as of today, at a whopping 43 cents. So
yeah, I'd read that
for those that bought it $30, I bet they're not loving that. Even a year ago, looking back a year, they were almost $2, $1.98 to 207. So in the past year, what's that, about a 300% decline there?
Something like that.
They lost a big chunk there. So 52-week high, $2.31, 52-week low of 41 cents a share. So
if you're a gambler now, probably the price will jump a little bit because they're doing the reverse, just buying back shares. So there's fewer of them that increase the value of it. Like if you're a gambler and you're not, you don't care. I'm like, I don't have the kind of money to do it, but I'd see something like this and like, you know what? I think they'll survive and they'll probably do better than 48 cents. So like, let me buy a bunch of 48 cents or 43 or wherever it's at, and then wait for it to, get up above $1, and then I don't know, more than double your money. So theoretically, it's possible, but
we need to get more weed legalization out there, and then Tilray can start to thrive. But
I got to say, I'm a little surprised at how long it's taken for that to just fully be legalized, because I thought we were really close, like seriously, like 10 years ago or something like that. Like it's almost legal by not even technicality, but that's by practice these days.
Yeah, it's something. I mean, I think we know here in Georgia we'll be one of the last states to get it. We've still got the Southern religiosity that'll impact that, so that'll be something that we won't see. But there are some states that I figure are, a little more liberal, where I'm surprised they haven't, legalized it for personal use there. And now I say that, Brian, I got to be honest that I don't know the total impacts on the places where it has been legalized. I know that last time I was out in Denver, I was talking to an Uber driver that had been there, and I had been to Denver. Gosh, Brian, it's been nearly 10 years now since the last time I was out. I think 8 years or so was the last time I was out in Denver. And prior to that, probably another 8 years before that. But one thing I noticed when I went back this last time, which again, 8 years ago. So Denver folks, I don't know what's changed since then, but there were a lot more homeless there, and there were homeless camps like set up there, some big areas. And I got to talking with the Uber driver about it. And he said that a lot of people came there when they legalized and they just didn't leave. So, maybe that's something for the states that are legalized. Now, of course, the problem would be diluted if more states had it legal there. But I think that was Colorado the first place for like full casual legalization? I don't know. I think for a while marijuana laws. So.
Yeah, I don't either. I think it was Colorado and California for a while. I'm thinking back to when we had. Now I lost his. The founder of Blue Moon. Keith Villa. Villa. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
and he was talking about creator of Blue Moon. He was talking about having his product Saria, I believe it was, in dispensaries, and it being difficult because you have distribution. It was odd because you have Colorado and California, but you have states in between where that's not legal. So
it's a long drive to get there, huh?
How do you get it from one to the other? You're having to put it through places like, I guess,
that's a good point,
like
Brian. I'd never really thought about distribution with this stuff. I guess it's got to get distributed somehow. It's got to get to where it's going, unless they're just growing it all locally grown. But I doubt that's the case.
I've gotten confirmation.
Smoke local, Brian.
The smoke local. I've gotten confirmation that it was Colorado and California from folks on Instagram, and also confirmation that what I've said is not financial advice. Trey Powell Music, thank you for reiterating that. Yeah, don't buy stuff as a result of what I say, unless it's beer, and that's not for financial reasons. That's for enjoyment reasons. So
that's enjoyment. We can give advice on that. Absolutely, that's for sure. So interesting. But we were talking here in Georgia. I think THC derived from hemp plants is legal. And I even saw an article, Scofflaw Brewing here does THC beverages. And they had a sponsored Facebook ad that said, legal shipping to all 50 states or something like that. And I'm like, oh, everywhere now? So I guess, and it sounds like from what I have heard that hemp derived THC is the same as any other THC. There's just not as much THC concentration in hemp. And again, I don't know my marijuana science that well at all, so I could be wrong, but I think that's the case.
It sounds like you were onto something with your comment about smoking local. Ashley Lay on Instagram says that most grass is local. I guess people.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right.
But edibles come from other states.
Okay.
And, it's apparently all legal where
New Mexico,
in
Colorado,
New Mexico,
California.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Those places. Yeah. So I had no idea. I guess maybe I didn't even think about the growing aspect of it. I'm like, it's got to be grown somewhere. I guess it's grown in those states for consumption there. I guess it makes sense. I think I'd rather have it done in the States, and they can reap the economic benefit of it. And also we can kind of monitor what's happening, and it's not like really suspect stuff that's being grown and processed. So yes, we do not want our grass to be sus.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. All right. Well, Brian, one more fun story here. I'm going to say fun story. Even macro beers sometimes try and get a little creative here, Brian. And Tecate is coming out with something a little, somewhat creative, I guess.
This is a very amusing beer release, and I think it's tied into the whole everything going on in politics as well. But it's one of the more interesting beer releases I've seen in a while, worth commenting on. So Heineken owns Tecate, and they are releasing a new salty edition of Tecate Light called Tecate Light con Sal de Golfo de Mexico, and that's not at all how you say it. That's just how I'm saying it, but close enough. The special edition beer was brewed with water from the Gulf of Mexico or the Gulf of America, depending on who's listening and
Gulf of Mexico.
Which map you're looking at. And it's meant to sell. No. What's that? Okay.
Never mind, Brian. We won't get into the politics.
Well, I still think of it as the Gulf of. I know it's official on maps because it had been that way for many decades of my life. But anyway, the beer is meant to celebrate national pride of Mexico and richness of local ingredients. And here's the thing, though: to get it, you have to make your way to a floating bar called Bar Golfo de Mexico off the coast of the Yucatan, because that's the only place it's currently available. And they had some big release there where they had celebrities and stuff. They flew them down and had them go to basically this giant, I don't know if it's a yacht or a skiff or something like that. That's basically a bar. Anyway, so it's only available there for now, but there are plans for wider distribution, but they're waiting to see how well it sells. Based on a quick look at the social media account for the floating bar, it seems like its launch, it didn't exist until they launched this beer. So they made a floating bar in the Gulf of Mexico, America, whatever.
I like the way they roll.
And to release the beer, and that's the only place they're putting it. So it's very unusual. You can't just walk up to it. What's also interesting is it's not meant to be a goza, as far as I can tell. It seems they just added salt water to their existing Tecate Light.
Well, yeah,
beer.
I mean, if it's not sour, it wouldn't be meant to be a goza. It's just salty beer.
And that's what I was thinking, like salty beer. I thought that was weird, but I guess people have been putting
you have not been to bowling alleys in the South before.
Yeah. Well, so I said, like, that's weird. What is going on? But I thought, you know what? People have been putting salt in their beer well before this. And I've got this little shaker that I picked up somewhere along the way. It's called beer
lime and salt. Yeah.
It's like a pickle beer salt. So it's actually, I've got a shaker of salt that I've never used that's meant to be poured in beer. So I'm like, I guess it's not that weird. But my initial thought was like, this is just wild. This is crazy. So good luck, Tecate/Heineken.
Good luck.
I will drink this beer if it makes it this far. I am not going to the Bar Golfo de Mexico.
I wonder if our buddy Digidoo Nate is in the right part of Mexico to get that. We'll have to
He might have gotten the invite.
Not sure.
Yeah.
He may have. Well, y'all, that wraps it up for our show this week. We really appreciate you hanging out with us. We hope you've enjoyed it. If you do like what we're doing here, we love it if you would support us by telling your friends to listen and subscribe. If you really dig what we're doing, we'd appreciate your support on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/beerguys and you can sign up for, I think $5 will get you. It'll get you in our Discord. We'll get you some swag. We'll hang out. You'll be able to come join us for the live after party after the show each week. So it will be a good time. But with that said, we hope that you all have a really good week. And don't forget to drink local. Cheers.